Following the September 11th disasters, a militant Islamic group in Pakistan held up a sign for all the world to see. It said, "Americans think why you are hated all over the world. We abhor the messenger, but we should not ignore the message." Here at home, we are told that the only reason for the suicidal mass killing we experienced on September 11th is that we are hated because we are free and prosperous. If these two conflicting views are not reconciled, we cannot wisely fight nor win the war in which we now find ourselves. We must understand why the hatred is directed toward Americans and not any other Western country. In studying history, I, as many others, have come to the conclusion that war is most often fought for economic reasons. But economic wars are driven by moral and emotional overtones. Our own revolution was fought to escape from the excessive taxation, but was inspired and driven by our desire to protect our God-given rights to liberty. The war between the states, fought primarily over tariffs, was nonetheless inspired by the abhorrence of slavery. It is this moral inspiration that drives people to suicidally fight to the death, as so many Americans did between 1861 and 1865. Both economic and moral causes of war must be understood. Ignoring the importance of each is dangerous. We should not casually ignore the root causes of our current fight, nor pursue this fight by merely accepting the explanation that they terrorize us out of jealousy. It has already been written that Islamic militants are fighting a holy war, a jihad. This drives them to commit acts that to us are beyond comprehension. It seems that they have no concern for economic issues, since they have no regard even for their own lives. But an economic issue does exist in this war. It's oil. When the conflict broke out between Iraq and Iran in early 1980s, we helped to finance and arm Iraq and Saddam Hussein. At that time, Anwar Sadat of Egypt profoundly stated, "This is the beginning of the war for oil." Our crisis today is part of this long-lasting war over oil. Osama bin Laden, a wealthy man, left Saudi Arabia in 1979 to join American-sponsored so-called freedom fighters in Afghanistan. He received financial assistance, weapons, and training from our CIA, just as his allies in Kosovo continue to receive the same from us today. Unbelievably, to this day, our foreign aid continues to flow into Afghanistan, even as we prepare to go to war against her. My suggestion is, not only should we stop this aid immediately, but we should never have started it in the first place. It's during this time bin Laden learned to practice terror, tragically with money from the U.S. taxpayers. But it wasn't until 1971, during what we refer to as the Persian Gulf War, that he turned fully against the United States. It was this war, said to protect our oil, that brought out the worst in him. Of course, it isn't our oil. The oil, in fact, belongs to the Arabs and other Muslim nations on the Persian Gulf. Our military presence in Saudi Arabia is what most Muslims believe to be a sacred violation of Holy Land. The continuous bombing and embargo of Iraq has intensified the hatred and contributed to more than 1 million deaths in Iraq. It is clear that protecting certain oil interests and our presence in the Persian Gulf helps drive this holy war. Muslims see this as an invasion and domination by a foreign enemy, which inspires radicalism. This is not new. This war, from their viewpoint, has been going on since the Crusades 1,000 years ago. We ignore this history at our own peril. The radicals react as some Americans might react if China dominated the Gulf of Mexico and had air bases in Texas and Florida. Dominating the Persian Gulf is not a benign activity. It has consequences. The attack on the USS Cole was a warning we ignored. Furthermore, our support for secular governments in the moderate Arab countries is interpreted by the radicals as more American control over their region that they want. There is no doubt that our policies that are seen by the radicals as favoring one faction over another in the long-lasting Middle East conflict adds to the distrust and hatred of America. The hatred has been suppressed because we are a powerful economic and military force and wield a lot of influence. But this suppressed hatred is now becoming more visible, and we as Americans, for the most part, are not even aware of how this could be. Americans have no animosity toward a people they hardly even know. Instead, our policies have been driven by the commercial interest of a few, and now the innocent suffer.